What's up, family? It is so good seeing you here. If you're watching this live, give me hashtag live in the comment section down below. Super excited to see you here. Like and subscribe. If you are just here for the very first time, listen, we go in super hardcore on a lot of things related to theology, masculinity, philosophy, so on and so forth. Really to establish a vision of masculinity from theology, psychology, philosophy, so on and so forth. So I'm going to go into a topic that I absolutely am passionate about, and I have an adamant hatred for this particular world. And yes, that word hate is very, very, very much intentionally used, because it actually is that. It is not just mere, I don't like it. It's pure disgust. The world and the popularity of polyamory, it's absolute nonsense. Let me just tell you this, guys. Just straight up, real men are not polyamorous. Ladies, for all of y'all who are watching this, following this, again, like and subscribe, I promise you, a real man is not remotely at all okay with polyamorous dynamics where he wants to be with other women and so on and so forth, and that's just how he's wired, or whatever garbage he may state. The reality is that real men aren't polyamorous. That's just the truth. Now, a lot of these guys have certain signals that you need to pay attention to, and I actually want to go over those specifically with you in this video. How to discern that you are with and or interacting with a very emasculated, uncommitted man who's probably into polyamory or whatever it may be. Number one, they justify their lack of self-control over their particular sexual desires. All of these guys, they constantly justify their sexual desires. They will go on and talk about how, well, their sexual desires is a need. And the truth is, no, that is not true. Sexual desires are desires. They are wants. They are deep wantings, yes. They are very strong wantings, yes. But a need, like food, you die if you don't have food. An ejaculation, you don't die not having an ejaculation, okay? You need food. You need air. Like, there are things you need, and if you don't have them, you die. An orgasm, you don't die from a lack of orgasms, okay? The reality of the fact of the matter is that these men want to justify their lack of self-control over their sexual desires and whatnot, and they make a bunch of excuses, and there's a couple of excuses that you need to pay attention to. They resort to, the second thing is that they resort to the nature fallacy, okay? So these guys will go on and say, oh, I'm wired this way. Men are biologically wired this way. They will go on, and the intellectual polyamorous people will go on and resort to evolutionary psychology, and they'll go on and quote a couple of, hunter-gatherer tribes, and they will go on and tell you about how many hunter-gatherer tribes have men of which they have multiple women, and that it's very normal and it's a part of our ancestry, and in fact, everybody's ancestors are pretty much polyamorous. And the reality of the fact of the matter is that truth is that, well, let's go and do that. Well, here's the truth, guys, is plenty enough that these guys are Darwinist, semi-Darwinist, and they believe in Darwin, but what are we evolving from? If we're just resorting back to, are we not really evolving? We're just going back to the past. Evolving means transforming and or progressing. There's a reason why we are where we are. And the reality is that you're the resorting to the nature fallacy and pretending that just because something is biologically intrinsically wired, or it's a biological process, that means it should be acted upon, is absolutely ridiculous. Let me tell you something. It is a biological process, a chemical process in my brain, that when someone flips the finger at me, I want to beat the living crap out of them, or whatever it may be. There are plenty of mechanisms in your body, in my body, that they are natural heuristics, they are natural triggers, they are natural responses, they are chemical responses in the body. They're not just sociology. I had one guy talking about, well, it's sociology versus biology. I'm like, what are you talking about? The reality is that those biological process that functions within the body, that functions within the brain, that causes us to behave in certain ways. That does not mean, for example, we are very biologically wired to chase after status. And so does that mean that when you have a guy who has more money and more cars and more whatever income or more muscles, does that mean that because he is of a higher status, you should compete with him by killing him? Because quite literally, if you look at primordial ancestry, that's kind of what happened. And if you look at chimpanzees, and if we think we're evolved from the chimps, well, chimpanzees quite literally kill one another for those types of things. And so are we ripping one another to pieces? Is that a good idea? Do we go back to our ancestors and the fact that of child sacrifice? There are plenty of our ancestors. If you go to Mexican ancestry is linked to the Incans and Mayans and Aztecs. That culture was, and I've been there to the Mayan temples, Mayan or Aztec, I can't remember which ones off the top of my mind right now, but literally all of the people there, the locals are like, yeah, it was like child sacrifice was normal. It's like, okay, if you have Mexican blood in you and you have your ancestors literally sacrifice children, do you just revert back to that because it's a part of your biology, it's a part of your ancestral history? No, you don't. Like the idea that just because our ancestor did it and it's quote unquote biological, that doesn't mean a single thing. When a man goes and murders somebody, there's biological processes that are going on. The truth is that you look at Ted Bundy, he probably had a very high sex drive. He probably had a lot of hormonal kind of things going on. And yeah, he took it out raping women and murdering them. Like, does that mean that he was justified because it's a biological process? No, he was wrong, evil, period. Okay, just because something is a part of nature or a part of biology doesn't mean there's plenty of things you can go into nature and eat and die. Just because things are a part of nature, it's a part of nature's way, whatever we're going to say, biological systems, that does not matter. It does not matter. These guys like to go on and pretend that they're intellectual and go on and resort to a fallacy of nature to presume that that is somehow an excuse to go on and behave the way that they are, and it's absolutely garbage. The other things that they resort to, aside from the whole polyus primal or whatever it may be, typically these guys are more relativists, okay? These people, these men, and women are this too. This is very similar with women, but I'm not going in specifically the things to look out for in women, addressing the men. Typically these guys are more relativists. And what that means is that they're very much, you do you and I do me. They're very much, my life doesn't impact you. They have, and so they think like, listen, if it fits you and if it floats your boat, and if you like that kind of thing, whatever. And they're more relativists. They don't have a strong stance on honestly anything. Maybe for some things. And funny enough, I'm not going to necessarily call out a guy, but there are polyamorous people who will justify even things like pedophilia. I remember I had a conversation with a guy who, he was talking about legalities, and I was like, well, I mean, if you're in a place where let's say Thailand, and you can go on and be with a girl who's 13 years old, if it's legally justified for a 35-year-old man in that particular state and or nation that you could be with a 13-year-old girl, 12-year-old girl, are you okay with that? No response. Honestly, granted, I'm not surprised, to be honest. But the reality of the fact of the matter is that all of these guys, they see morality as relative. They're typically the god of their own life. They're the god of their own life. They probably don't even believe in God. And if they do, it's the universe is connected. We're all connected. We're all gods and goddesses in their mind. They have a very pantheistic view of the world. And so morality is not objective. Morality is the perspective of the person. It is the desire and or fleeting emotion of the individual and of the observer. And so if it works for you, then that's your moral system and that's your truth, my truth, which is another thing. These guys are there's no objective truth. It's all about your truth, my truth. They're very much postmodernist. Truth is not knowable to these individuals, and truth is totally relative. It is totally determined on the individual. there's no objective truth whatsoever. There's no objective morality in the actual sense. It's just a morality is a sociological construct, social psychological process. It's not objective per se. It's something that we just impose as a society or whatever it may be. So they're very much relativist in their morality and in their perspective. Again, these are all things that I'm sharing with you, specifically men who you're hanging around guys. Listen, don't hang around with these guys. They're a bunch of jokes. Like, let them burn. And then for the ladies, like for you ladies who are watching this is something to pay attention to. So another thing that they do is that they make excuses for poor character. Again, because they're more relativist, they typically just make a lot of excuses. They make a bunch of excuses for poor character. That's just the nature of it. The other aspect about it is that they typically practice, not all of them, if they're not atheistic, by nature, they're typically very new agey. They're into sage, they're into ayahuasca, they're into go to Peru and doing the ayahuasca ceremony. They're into Aubrey Marcus, and he's the god of their life in terms of spiritual guruism. The reality of the fact of the matter is that these individuals are in love with strange ideas. They're very much in love with strange ideas. They're very much into mythic occultism, New Ageism, Buddhism. Oftentimes they're just very mythical and mystical. Again, it makes sense because of the moral fluidity that kind of is a result of the fluidity of their personality. They're very some of them may be flamboyant, some of them are actually gay. I've actually seen a guy who he came out to his girlfriend, and I remember I saw a post and I ended up not following him because I was like, he's this like super jack guy that ended up being like super into dominatrix and like gay. I'm like, this is weird, but they just believe in a lot of strange things. It's funny because Christians are told that we believe in strange things, like hell and God or whatever it is, but these guys worship stars and astrology and think that Mars is determining their destiny. And so it's just funny. I'm like, okay, you went from one strange peculiarity, a peculiar belief system, to another. And so I'm a believer. I'm a Christian, but I just find it ironic that we're flogged in society for our belief systems, all the while all these individuals go on and worship Mars and Jupiter. But it's pretty hysterical. These guys are also another thing that they are into. They love Burning Man. Like, they love all of these guys. They're probably living in Austin, guys. They're living in Austin, California, LA. They're living in these particular places. I'm in Austin right now. And so these guys are into ketamine. They're into psychedelic journeys. Again, the whole like ayahuasca retreats in Peru and going in plant medicine and ceremonies, and plant medicine is God, and it's like absolutely game changing or whatever it may be. And so these guys are like, they just escape reality, and they're always doing the shaft. It's funny because a lot of these guys are kind of dickheads. They're very arrogant. I've had conversations with a lot of them, but they're very arrogant in their life. There's actually one guy, just today, I discovered that he has been raping women, quite literally. His name is John, and yes, that's his actual name. And I have no problem calling him out on that, John Romelio. And quite literally all into polyamory, all into the psychedelic adventures, all into the weird astrology. That's just it. And lo and behold, he's raping people. To be honest, I'm not surprised that women have been forcefully coerced in having sex or manipulated and or forced, i.e. rape. I'm just not surprised. I'm sad for them, but I'm not surprised in that aspect with him and with a lot of these guys, candidly. And so they all justify, they all manipulate. That's just the nature of it. And they just need to be thrown in prison, to be honest, especially a guy like him. And so they're all into their psychedelic. Like I said, the sacrament of the church, the Eucharist, their sacrament is plant medicine. the end of the day, they're just replacing the religion, the religion, true and undefiled religion of the original apostolic church to the defiled satanic religion of ayahuasca and plant medicine, and that is their sacrament, that is their Eucharist. That is how they worship God, i.e. themselves is God. And so they love Burning Man, they love all this stuff, they love LSD. They wish that they were a part of the hippie movement in I think the 70s. I can't remember exactly what it was, but they're all about it. It's the new hippie movement. So they admire guys, another aspect about these men, they admire guys who are like Dan Bilzerian-esque. And so they either go into the one world of like super New Ageism, or I don't know if Dan Bilzerian is like super into New Age. He might be. But some of these guys are not New Age. They're just postmodern atheistic and semi-nihilist. Like, I don't care if there is a God kind of thing, but they're fairly atheistic. And they're all into Dan Bilzerian. Like, they're into Dan Bilzerian. They're just guys like that, into that life. Like, they have to overcompensate their lack of masculinity by showing that they're masculine by the fact that they work out, they have a bunch of chicks, a bunch of hot girls, and I bang like 5 girls a day or whatever it is. It's just the I need to overcompensate for the insecurity and insufficiency that I feel, and I have to do the whole like locker room big dick who has the bigger dick kind of thing and show how many women I have. Blah, 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 blah. They're just all into guys like that. And the reality of the fact of the matter is that they're all emasculated. That's just the nature of it. They're completely emasculated. They need to be admired by the fact that they womanize and that they're womanizers. And like I said, they're all, a lot of them typically are into Dan Bilzerian is just one guy. They tend to be actually into him. He has a book, I can't remember, but they tend to read and love that particular book or be into guys who are like that, who are very much like, got multiple girls on their arms or whatever, and they're just kind of playing that game. And so that's just the nature of it. And then lastly, last but not least, to kind of close this video off, a lot of them follow like super plastic surgery girls who are half naked, all of this stuff. They're just like super into that. Like they typically follow a lot of these kinds of girls who are plastic, fake Kim Kardashian-esque. But just generally speaking, if a girl has plastic surgery, whatever. But it's not just plastic surgery. They're following girls who don't just get a bunch of plastic surgery. They're following girls who get plastic surgery and on top of that, like are pretty much OnlyFans girls. They're like half naked. They've got like a bikini that like is the top is only showing their nipple. Or like, like blocking their nipples. It's pretty ridiculous. It's like you might as well just not have a bikini on, sweetie. It's like you might as well just show it. We all know what you're really trying to do. And so these guys are following, if you look at their Instagram accounts or their feeds, it's full of debauchery. It is full of sensual women who don't really have respect for themselves, and that is the nature of it. And so look out for these kinds of men. Like these guys, they're preying on you. They will again try to peacock their virtue. The John Romilio guy, I don't know how to say his name, and I don't really care because he's a piece of trash. The reality of the fact of the matter is that they will flaunt their stuff. A lot of these guys also are liberal. Not all of them. I know a couple of actual polyamorous men who are conservative, whatever that means to these guys. But needless to say, a lot of them are politically moderate or liberal. Usually, most of the time, it's very liberal. Like the John guy, quite literally, the dude posts. He's always advocating on his social media. It's like very annoying. He's always advocating for Black people or whatever it may be. He's always advocating for the next very left-wing kind of thing. And so the reality of the fact of the matter is that, yeah, like these guys are just preying on you. They're preying on you. They don't care. They will try to manipulate you. They'll try to tell you that they're into you, that they're committed to you. They'll try to manipulate you and tell you that jealousy is, you need to do the inner work. you need to overcome your jealousy. You know, and that jealousy is something that needs to be expiated out of you because it's wrong. You as a woman, you are the one in the wrong. You are the one who's off or whatever it may be, and let's get you a therapist. Let's like process this a little bit. Let's talk this through. Let's work through your emotions, and let's just see how we can work this out. What's the middle ground we can work out here? And the reality is that it's just pure manipulation. That's just the nature of it. And so watch out for these men. Again, just to finalize this, watch out for these guys. They don't care. And like, these people need deliverance. They need deliverance. They need deliverance. They are bound by Jezebel. They are Jezebelic. They are in a wicked and evil lifestyle. That is the nature of it. They are justifying it, and they are calling evil good and good evil. And so, guys, you too, not the guy, not interested in y'all dating, but specifically, don't be friends with these people because they're going to try to influence you and try to manipulate your mentality. And ladies specifically, don't date these guys. They're jokers. They're losers. There's plenty of great godly men who aren't these guys. Don't settle. Okay? Like and subscribe. Super excited and see you in the next series of videos. Cheers.
Okie dokie.